Hi, everyone. Today we're going to talk to Dr. Adam Christman. He is the Chief Veterinary Officer for DVM 360, plus a load of other things, podcasts, newsletters. He is the cat's pajamas and the dog's meow in this industry. And I'm so glad that we talk about what pets mean to him and veterinary medicine and interaction and clients communication. It is a jam-packed 30 minutes you won't want to miss. So let's hear what I talked to Adam about this time.
Do Pets Matter? 10 years ago, with my iPhone and a script, I recorded the first episode of the Ultimate Pet Resolution Summit, which chatted with experts about conflicts over animals. Our conversations were intimate, honest, and illustrated how disagreements over animals occur and how those disagreements can reshape people's lives and relationships. In November 2019, I started Why Do Pets Matter, a new podcast that continued these informative discussions. I'm so excited to have you here with me, continuing my exploration into a more meaningful conversation about why pets matter to all of us. My guests and I will share ideas, stories, and experiences straight from the heart, unscripted and holistic. From the bravest moments to the most brokenhearted, we will explore how to resolve disagreements over animals differently. One thing I know for sure is I want to have more meaningful conversations that will help all of us unlock that deeply felt human-animal bond that drives the emotions of conflict.
Hi, everyone. Debra Hamilton. Remember to like and give us 5 stars and share us with your friends. This is the Why Do Pets Matter podcast, and I'm here with the wonderful Adam Christman. He is the Chief Veterinary Officer at DVM 360, plus other hats that he's wearing. I'm so grateful to have him here today. Adam, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. This is great. I love that you do this, by the way.
Well, I bring everybody from across the entire animal-loving world. I mean, I have people from animal welfare, animal rights, lawyers, doctors, Indian chiefs, owners, breeders, so that everybody can hear the different points of view, so we all know that what I do is try to bring people together and communicate, that we all actually have some common ground that we can start with, which is why I do what I do. So we always ask our guests only one question, Adam.
Okay.
And so why do pets matter to you?
They matter because they're living, breathing proof that connection heals. They bridge the gap between species. I mean, there's so many of them that are out there, and they remind us that empathy isn't just exclusive to humans. They tend to anchor people through loneliness. We see it through stress, through it with loss, how we deal and manage with loss and grief. And they do it without words, without judgment, and without any conditions. And I think from my standpoint as a veterinarian, they matter because they give me purpose to do my job every day. And I tell students and new graduates this, that they turn medicine into meaning. They turn medicine into meaning. Every heartbeat that you stabilize, every pain you relieve, every life you improve ripples out, because behind every pet, on the other end of that leash, on the other side of that carrier, or whatever that is, a person is sleeping better knowing that their animal is okay.
That is such an important way to look at it, because they are part of our lives. Roger Karish used to say at the Westminster Dog Show, dogs are not our whole life, but they make our life whole. And you're talking about why pets matter to you seems to me to point out that not only do dogs make our lives whole, the people who, are lucky enough to live with them, or cats, or birds, or horses, or lizards, or snakes, you really do feel better being with animals.
Yes. And they teach you kindness. And that's what I'm a huge advocate for, is nothing gives you greater purpose in life than the meaning of unconditional love and taking care of a species other than yourself, or even other than your human kids, because they drive compassion. And what I love even more is that it teaches children responsibility, teaching adults patience, and it gives the elderly that companionship that gets them going. I mean, I hear this all the time, that, and I'm sure you heard this too, that pet is a connection to maybe a loved one that has crossed over. And so, talk about it weighs heavy on us as veterinarians, knowing like, my gosh, we have a big responsibility to take care of them. But I just love that these pets are that emotional glue in homes and families, and it gives us even more purpose every day with what we do in vet med.
It really does, because these animals, in my practice, I always try to help people when they're angry with someone, either someone who they bought a dog from, or a veterinarian, or a neighbor, or whatever. I often say to them, Let's take a moment and be the person your pet thinks you are."
Yes. Be be the they didn't choose to come into your hearts, into your home. You chose them. And so with that comes responsibility and fiscal responsibility, emotional welfare, all those different things that we have to do for our pets because they give so much in return and really do ask for very little unless you own a dachshund.
Well, I've owned and raised and shown dachshunds, so yes, I know they do have a little bit of an opinion. I now have an English Cocker who I think outshines dachshunds on the opinion scale. So I just want to
Yes.
let you know that yeah, they really do create your manner of life, because you run your life usually around them.
Yes.
And when things go right, things go wrong, having that communication is so important, because if you take a breath, it sometimes diffuses some of the angst, both for the neighbors with barking dogs when I work nights and you work days, divorcing with pets, you love those pets, or veterinary interactions with people with pets. If you can take a minute to recognize that, in your dog's eyes or your cat's eyes, you are the best person in the entire world. Try to be that person when you're having a minute, so that you can really diffuse it, so that things don't go off the rails. Because you and I have talked before about the interactions that sometimes create angst for both pet owners and veterinarians, and that's a tough nut to crack.
It is. It is a tough nut to crack. But yeah, to your point, you look into their eyes and you are their person.
They're their world.
Their whole world. Like I would say, you could be gone to the mailbox, you could be gone for 5 minutes or 5 days, you still get a wiggle butt and a greeting. Cats still do too. Don't To the cat lovers out there, you also get greetings from them, of course. But it really does teach you that connection, that unspoken word of human bond that's there. And it's sometimes you can't put words into it on what it is that makes them so powerful. One of the reasons why I host twice a year a wiener walk, a dachshund walk, and we allow all dogs to come. And this fills my bucket. It's completely free. I have no angle out of this other than the joy of just enjoying dogs together. To me, it's my Christmas day twice a year, is what I say, because to be around other pet parents celebrating the love and hearing all the goofy things that these dogs do and the crazy things. And at the end of the day, they say, I would pay anything for them because we love them so much. To see kids, no matter what color your skin is, who you love, how many kids you have, that dog is their whole world. And it's just so great celebrating that bond with a community that respects animals. I think it's wonderful.
And it's such an important thing to really celebrate the communities, as a whole, who usually respect animals as a whole. I always say when I'm doing my mediation work, there are people who don't like animals, and that doesn't make them a bad thing. It just makes them like a cleaner house than I have,
Right.
probably you have. Dog hair everywhere, slobber. Uh,
Yes.
we have these different ideas, and I always say, and probably you do too, I feel bad for someone who has never felt that love,
Yes.
that
Yes.
unconditional love, especially when you need it. They always know when you need it.
Yes. And I feel like people are missing out on that. And I had a really good conversation with a server, waitress. She was phenomenal, and she happened to recognize me through TikTok. And she said, "Oh, you're the veterinarian, right?" I said, "Yeah." She's like, "I just don't love animals." And I said, "Tell me more." I said, "Sit down." I said,
I need to
"Sit
hear
down.
this.
Get in the booth here and talk
Yeah.
to me more about that." And she
But she's
said, "This
watching your podcast, so that's interesting.
right?" And she said, she's like, I just never connected well with animals. And I said, maybe you just didn't have the right
Right.
connection. It wasn't like allergies or anything like that. She just didn't feel the connection that other people do. I said, maybe you just need to find whatever
That
that might
animal.
be, right? And it makes me realize too, like, you can love a hamster, you can love a chinchilla, a turtle, a horse. There is a bond that we all have with our pets that is just so powerful and strong. But I really, really do believe that every person should own a pet because it does teach you so much about life, how precious life is. It's finite. They're not in our lives forever. And I think it's good to be taught that, but also just it teaches you kindness, and let alone the medicinal side of the effects that it does for us with our blood pressures and PTSDs and all those different things that we can have with what animals can do for us. But I just think that's so powerful to have them in our homes.
And the consistency and lack of selfishness, right? Because
Yes.
we have to make sure they eat. We have to make sure they go out unless we really revel in cleaning up. And I know with my dachshunds, that was always a crapshoot, literally, not
Yeah.
figuratively, because they would decide, maybe, maybe not. I'm not sure. I might go out for an hour and then come in. These responsibilities that you have, and the responsibility to recognize. I know you and I both have had dogs. I've just babysat for my son's cat, my first time with a cat. And they really let you know how they feel about you, and it's always they're waiting for you to be with them, and they will sit like my guy right now is sitting right behind my desk and waiting for
Oh,
me to get off this call. And sometimes if I'm too long, he jumps up and we
yes.
visit because they just, half an hour, mom, that's enough. Nobody wants to hear
Yep.
you talk any more than half an hour. But they're really these kind of things that happen. And when you're a veterinarian, you're dealing not only with the human patient, the animal patient, but the human guardian, or whatever they want to call themselves, the,
Yeah.
pair of the bill, whatever, that you really need to know how to create that interaction as a veterinarian, because that's the most important. I often find veterinarians say, I hate when people come in with like Dr. Google stack this thick. And I go, yeah, I know. I said, I hate when they come into my office and tell me what the law is. I sit there and go, okay, yeah, I am so glad you brought that into me. And now let's see how that might apply to your problem. And that's what I usually tell vets as well. Just say thank you. They're not
Yes.
really questioning your ability to diagnose their dog. They just usually had to wait 2 weeks to see you. And this is
And
what they
it,
did to keep them
right.
sustained.
And it shows that they care. Let's
Yeah.
call it what it is. They show that they care. They want to look up something called Cushing's disease. And I heard that my dog's drinking urinating more than normal. I think my dog has Cushing's. Thank you. Maybe it has diabetes instead, but thank you for knowing and recognizing these signs. And I love that you said that. And I encourage the listeners that are tuning in, like, hopefully you do not get dismissed by your veterinarian about that. Oh, that's garbage. Oh, that's not that. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Let's have a conversation about that. I mean, you're paying money to see me for my medical expertise, and let's chat about it. So I do think that there is value to be had when they bring in some, some everything, because nowadays you
Oh,
see,
yeah. Oh,
but
yeah. It could have something that has never happened since the 1800s, but my
yes,
dog has it.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
I know. Our friend right now is going through something. Their dog has something no one can diagnose. They're at NC State, and nobody can diagnose it. They don't know if it's fungal. They don't know if it, and you just want to go where you can get the best care, but also, as you know, as a veterinarian, the best communication of that care.
Yes. Communication matters. We're your other family doctor. We really are. Nothing gives us greater meaning and purpose to be part of that journey throughout the pet's life. And I've seen it so many years. I have over 22 years of doing this, and you get to see the children's children now, and you get to see how they also become pet parents, and it's a journey to be there from, I'll just say puppies, for instance, from puppyhood to end of life care. It's an honor to serve that human animal bond. It's not easy. If it was easy, everyone would be doing it. But I think it's a true calling. I will share this with you too, by the way, is that the average age a veterinarian decides to become a veterinarian is 10 years of age. It's one of the youngest professional callings out there with the major professions. And it speaks volumes to our compassion, our leading with our heart. Because sometimes we'll get bashed on social media like, oh, vets, they just want money. Like, hold up, wait a minute. Yes, we need to get paid to keep the lights on, but we're on the same side of the exam table, And I just wrote an article earlier on DVM 360 about this because remembering your why, we're pet parents first, we're veterinarians second. And we were inspired by having a pet before we became a veterinarian or veterinary technician. And I think it speaks to the testament and credibility of a profession that embraces the human animal bond, because we are those pet parents. We see you. We cry and we lose our minds too when our dogs can't walk or there's blood in the stool. We get it. We know how to kind of manage it maybe a little bit better than a regular pet parent, but we still, at the end of the day, are pet parents. So I do think that speaks volumes to the profession that we work in.
I love that you said there. There's two things there. I wrote an article, a colleague of ours wrote an article on hating the word pet parent. And I go, that is not a hill you want to die on. I
Yeah.
mean, really, it's just a word and it means something to everyone. And being a lawyer, it's not a liability or adding liability because you're using the word pet parent. No, that's not
Yes.
going to go anywhere. And to have a disagreement about that word is really
Uh,
ridiculous. And then the second thing went out of my brain, but I'll think of it after you let me know what you think of pet parent. I think it's a fine word, pet guardian. I mean, some of
yeah,
the animal rights, animal welfare people,
I
want
know.
you not to use any sort of guardianship term, or maybe that's the term they want you to use because, these are free spirits. And I'm like, whatever it takes to take care of them and be part of their life and work together to make sure they live a happy and healthy life is really the most important thing to do.
Absolutely. It's a matter of having that connection with the owner in the exam room. If I said to them, well, I have a client here, client, what is this? Like,
Yeah.
like it doesn't sound right. And when I first came out of vet school, I was always saying client, pet owner. The verbiage has changed, of course, and we need to change with that. And the Gen Z clientele and Gen Alpha, which is right behind them, they're pet parents. They're looking before they even consider purchasing a home or an apartment. They are looking to make sure that the sun hits that windowsill just right for their cat if they're going to make that investment.
Hey, my
Or
son bought an apartment because it had a sunny window for Jane.
bingo, right? Looking at the backyard to make sure that it's fenced in for their dog that they have. It's always it has the we now know the data is there. It's the pet first, and then we'll consider maybe having a human child.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, I just want to share this with you too. And I get asked this in a couple of interviews. I don't get upset about it at all, but they'll say like, how come you and your husband never adopted human children? Like you're so good at being a pet parent. We love your personality, your vibe. Don't you feel like you're missing out on something? And my answer is no, I really don't. I mean, I'm an uncle, certainly
Right.
wonderful, love that. But I think, they hit the physical, emotional, spiritual marks for me, and they make me better versions of myself. But I never felt like I needed to have human children. And that's my opinion, my choice, of course. But I'll
I
always say,
love that. I love that when you said they make me feel like I'm the best version of myself. That's so important. I remembered the second one. So the second one was when there was something posted about, I hate when they ask me, I'm building your boat or I'm,
uh,
building your condo or I'm doing that. And I sit there and I go, well, first of all, that's when I tell them to breathe. They're just having a moment. Don't even
right,
go there because we can get, reactive and defensive because I get the same thing. Oh, I guess, you're champagne. And I'm like, no, you really want to work this out in a way that's going to serve you. Tell me how I can help you.
right,
And with veterinarians, there's this, and I love them very much, but there's this need not to say, I get it. This is really expensive and things have gone up. And we're working together for Fluffy. So let me know how we can work together because it's really important. I had a vet who I love. I'm in New York and now I'm here in North Carolina. I haven't met that clone yet. She had taught her clients at the front desk to say, boy, this is really expensive. And she gave them 20% off. And I pulled her in the back and I said, you're creating Pavlov's dog.
yeah,
I said, they know that if you're at the front desk and they say this is expensive, you're going to do this. I said, why don't you just say, tell me what you think, because we're working together and I want to make sure I serve you in a way that resonates with you. And she goes, I could actually say that. I said, yeah, ask them why they're asking for this off, and also share with them that this is, she basically had a concierge practice that she didn't charge for. And she spent, I told Adam before he came on that I worked at a university hospital that gave 15 minutes to their vets to go in, see the dog, meet the person, and give a diagnosis. And she would spend hours with people. In fact, you always decided that you were going to be there for at least an hour, maybe two, waiting for her. And some people won't do that. And
yeah.
yet you knew that when you were in the room, she was totally in there with you. And I guess that's what you pay for. So when people are talking about money, I said, all you need to do is say, I love that you're here, and I love that you're part of our family, because that's how we feel. I don't know, how do you feel about that? Because when people ask about money or make those negative comments, I love to give my veterinarians just things that diffuse it, don't accelerate it, because
Yeah.
in the moment it can go sideways really quickly.
Oh, can totally go sideways. I heard one veterinarian that would say, "Well, it's like you asking me that you want to buy $200 worth of groceries for $50. It doesn't work that way." And same thing in vet med. And I think where the pendulum has shifted the conversation, because now we talk a lot about spectrum of care and
Yeah.
what is truly the quote, gold standard of practicing. For instance, if we're treating a skin infection, for instance, there's different ways that we can go about it that can work within your budget. So sometimes we just will lean in and say, well, tell me what works within your budget. Like if we're in between the $100, $200 range, is that something that seems feasible for you? Then, giving them a little bit of a range so that way, like, listen, I hear you. I can meet you where you are. I'm not dismissing you, and we can have a good outcome with what we're doing on a budget, and it's perfectly fine. I practiced for many years in my hometown. What I This is a big pet peeve of mine, is that the friends and family discount was thrown around so much for, because, oh, I know Adam. They would call up, I know Adam. And so as if they're doing me justice, which I appreciate, of course, but I haven't seen you since we graduated high school together, and now you expect some sort of a discount. And like that entitlement really just got me and grinded my gears, because I would never do that to somebody, anyone,
Me
like have
neither.
this level of expectation just because I know you, that I'm supposed to get a discount. In fact, it should be reversed because I know you, you know me better. I think we're going to have great, communication. The fact that
Synergy. Yep.
right. It like, we're gonna vibe better. And I call that a win. If not, then go to somebody else where you feel like you can have something different and see if you can have a friends and family air quote discount at another practice. It's not,
Yeah.
it doesn't work that way. But I did the best I could, of course, because you want to,
Well,
take
but
care of them.
but we shouldn't be put, because the lawyers are like that too. They think, well, I referred to somebody, you should give them a discount because we're friends. And I'm like, okay, I
Right.
still have to put the lights on. And I always say to the veterinarians, just say to them, I love that you asked that question. And can I share with you that we have some of the top technicians, we have some of the top diagnosticians here. We use some of the best practices, and we are willing to work with you across the board and go the entire spectrum. And all we need to do is know, and we'll work with you. But we want to practice this kind of medicine, and not to make anybody feel bad, but I just want to meet you where you are and what feels good to you, because I know that for me, I'm, an ABC kind of person. I want to make sure that I let my dogs go a day early, not a day late. And some people go, oh my God, you wouldn't do and I go, if they're going to stay in the hospital for the last 3 weeks of their lives, I don't want that. I said, I want them
Mhm.
home with me. That's just me. And
Right.
like when you said you want these wonderful dogs, which I could tell you that had I known before I had my two sons, I would have only had dogs too. I love you boys. I know I do, but I would have only had dogs too, because I can crate them and not get arrested.
Right.
So it's just something that it's hard to communicate, so we avoid it, right? Both
Yes.
on the part of the pet parent and on the part of veterinarian. And what I would love is for some, kind of dialogue that would at least help you understand, well, what is, like I just said, what is your, philosophy? What would you like to do? Well, this is what I'd like to do. And when we cross that bridge later on, I might change my mind, and I can tell you that, but at least you know where I am. And that helps you give me the kind of medicine that's important to me.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Having that conversation is important. And what's nice in this day and age is we talk a lot about precision medicine and customizable care. So it's not a cookie cutter where every dog gets the same vaccine, every cat gets the same vaccine. We're having really good conversations about, tell me about the lifestyle of the pet. Are you going to be going hunting with them? You doing dog shows with them? Um, I think having those that really goes, oh my gosh, you meet me where I am. The fact that I have a golden retriever, let's talk about early liquid biopsy detection for certain cancers.
Yeah.
I have a standard schnauzer. Let's talk about urine testing for, transitional cell carcinoma type of thing. So I think having those conversations, and the pet owners are doing their research, which I'm loving that they are. When they're looking at their breed or their DNA testing their dog or cat, they know that, okay, I should be concerned about SARS or eye issues in these dogs. So what are some things that we could do to be stay on top of that? So that is that's great care right now. That's what we're seeing in veterinary medicine. We're seeing on the human side, of course, and so we're finally seeing it on the veterinary space, which speaks volumes to what we're doing and how quickly we're adapting to the changes of the pet parent.
Well, I love that the AKC Canine Health Foundation has created this uh, funding for different maladies that hit certain breeds. So whether or not you have a mixed breed or you have a purebred, you can actually look at what they're doing research wise to see if, say hip dysplasia or PRA or whatever, and
Mm,
see what the maladies are. I always say to people who get one of the doodles, I go, just ask your breeder if they've done the testing for the poodles, the recommended health testing for the poodles and the recommended health testing, say, for the Bernese. I said, so that that they're doing their homework, because no breeder can tell you my dog is going to be perfectly healthy. You know,
right,
God has a funny way and nature has a funny way of sneaking in there and doing shitty things, even though you breed the best of the best and you hope for the best. I mean, that's with
right,
racehorses, that's with dogs, that's with cats. But having that information and sharing that with veterinarians, I'll share with you. I went to a corporate vet conference and I introduced myself as a lawyer and a breeder. And I said, and how many of you think I'm your worst nightmare? And they all raised their hand. And I said, and you don't even know me, so let's think about that.
right.
I could be like your best client and I could have my vet come up here and tell you, I used to call her in the middle of the night if I couldn't get anybody else to hold the dog. But I said, breeders are a pain in the butt and I work with them too. And I tell them, listen, you have to approach this in a much less know-it-all kind of way. And I talk to the veterinarians and I go, I know it drives you nuts when the clients come in with a sheaf of
Yeah.
information about this puppy. And yet when I got my English Cocker Spaniel, I got a sheath this thick, and she was raised holistically, and they don't do shots, and they don't do this. And I said to her, "Well, I'm not there." I said, "But I will respect everything that you have said, and I'm going to talk to my vet." And it was interesting because my vet never thought to call the breeder and ask why. And I always say to the veterinarians, they send this home if they're reputable breeders, if they're doing this for the preservation of the breed, they're usually doing it because they know their line. Like I know my line. For 20 years, every single litter had one dog who bloated. So I
Mm,
told everybody, just be careful of bloat. This is what you have to work upon. This is what you have to do. And I would get PRA if they did like the rabies and the parvo and everything else all at once. My dogs would immediately either have HOD or panosteitis. And I said, please tell them to separate the shots. And the veterinarians notorious would say, oh, she only wants you to come back again, so you have to spend more money. Just call me. And,
yeah.
and let me ask you, did you ever have the inkling of some crazy thing was happening with a breeder that you picked up the phone and called and said, tell me why you do this?
Hmm. I do. I, but I want to say though, I'm going to flip that narrative because I learned
Sure.
so much from breeders,
Right.
and I want, and we're not just because we're veterinarians doesn't mean we know everything. I don't know everything about every dog breed. So I love that I learn about the dog breed, not even just about like the health, but their behavior, things to expect. I had a wonderful breeder from Weimaraners, and I know some people are like, oh my God, but she taught me so much about Weimaraners. That taught me about their behavior, things to look out for. So please, we welcome them to the supper table and trainers and behaviorists. It's a multi-pronged approach. I love
Yeah.
working with groomers. They catch things, like this ear
Oh,
might be a hot spot, right? So many different conversations. But I had one example was a breeder about leptospirosis. I know this is a thing in the with some certain breeders, and you know what? I can see why, though. I can certainly see why. It happened to my Capone, and
yeah.
she told, and I told you this on the other podcast, is that she said this particular lineage, she goes, is sensitive to lepto, so make sure you pre-treat them. She was 100% right. 100% right. And I'm glad I did because, yeah, he was a little punky lethargic from the lepto. Not to say I know vaccinating against lepto, but she said it's one thing to, and I love
You have
what
to
she,
know
yes,
what to look for.
right,
If my dogs almost always get Pano or HOD, if you double up shots, then either don't double up the shots, but if you choose to double up the shots, tell the owner what to look for.
right. 100%. Wouldn't it make amazing, like knowing that you can be made aware of ahead of time? I know that the owners are being taught this, but the veterinarian, if I had Deborah Hamilton that said, hey, Dr. Christman, I heard that from my breeder that we would like to separate the vaccines because of HOD or panosteitis. Absolutely good to know. I'll make a note and we'll go ahead and do that. I just don't like sometimes when we have to have this bickering back and forth because we can have this healthy discussion
And
together.
it's the breeders too. So I will
Yeah.
raise my hand that, I'm working with breeders to have a better conversation with veterinarians too, because yes, you know about this line of French bulldogs, that if you
Yes.
give them rabies, they're going to go into anaphylactic shock. Your line, I get it. And if the vet says that's a bunch of hogwash, and then the dog goes into anaphylactic shock after the rabies shot, you have to know. And then what I always say to the veterinarians that if you do it, and it does happen, call the breeder, say, thank you. I'm sorry that we didn't, abide by what you said, but I want you to keep telling your owners so that other veterinarians know, because I knew and I told the owner what to look for if we gave it rabies, if in fact it's going to go into anaphylactic shock. It did. She brought it back. We were able to treat it and it's alive. But if you don't, and you just poo-poo it, it's really important.
Right.
That's that communication again, Adam.
Yeah.
You really have to understand that we might not know much. Like I don't know much about Weimaraners or Vizslas, but I know way too much about Irish setters and long-haired dachshunds, and now I'm learning about English Cocker Spaniels. I mean, they are like a nightmare when it comes to vaccinations, and of course it's fed by the breeder group that goes crazy. And I gotta have a little bit of a calm discussion with my veterinarian about this, because lepto here, I'm in Eastern North Carolina on a river. I treated for lepto, and it was totally against the honor code of my English Cocker Spaniel breeder. But I said, well, I'm near standing water that's sort of walked in by all sorts of different animals. I
Yeah.
think I need to make sure. And we just monitored her for probably 7 days because I do overkill. But she was fine.
Wow. Yeah, fascinating. And the same goes too for rescue groups and for animal shelters. They have great alerts about things that they could be reacted to, especially behavior. Oh my gosh, I can't begin to tell you how many great things they have given, pearls of wisdom just to say, hey, maybe prefers a female veterinarian versus a male veterinarian for this time. I think that's fantastic to keep note. And on the flip side, there was a particular rescue that was deworming every week. And I said, we don't need to do that. And here's the why behind the medicine. So it goes both ways. And we taught them, they said, oh, thank you so much. Actually, they invited me to come down to do a lunch and learn for their group to talk about deworming protocols. That's wonderful. I think that's fantastic. And one of the breeders that was in our local town, we had her come in to talk to us about, vaccine protocols. This was for English bulldogs. And I
Oh,
thought it was, yeah,
another group that you have to be really careful about,
right.
because they're special dogs. And I
Yes.
mean that in the nicest way. You really have to be careful.
Yeah, totally.
You have to be aware. You can't, and if you haven't had an English bulldog, you really do need to rely, if it's bought from a reputable English bulldog person and that's the other thing. There's been such a push for no brachiocephalic dogs. And I go, that's going to be terrible for the people who really love this breed. And they'll just go underground for the people who don't care and just want to provide the breed. I said, so you really need to have that conversation above ground together to breed the best dogs.
Yeah,
I
right.
mean, that's the common ground. Adam, I am so glad we had this time together.
Yeah, thank you.
It's been so much fun chatting with you about a myriad of things, but my takeaway from this, I'd love to know your takeaway. My takeaway is that, these are important times. Animals are creating that stability for us, that endless love, and it's just become something that's really important. And we have to recognize that when we're talking to each other, that these animals are really important to their owners. They're really important to their medical care team. And working together always works better than being at odds.
Yes. I mean, my takeaway from this is pets matter in the simplest way because they make life better physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And because we care for them, we become better versions of ourselves, like I was telling you earlier. So,
Yeah,
everyone
we're
that,
going to be the person our dog, cat, bird, horse, lizard think we are.
yes, bingo.
God forbid. Oh my God. I could never live up to that. It'd be too hard.
Right.
Adam, thank you so much. Tell everybody so they can, you have a podcast, you have a newsletter.
Yes.
How can they find you?
Yes, I have a website, dradamchrisman.com. I'm on TikTok, of course, Instagram. If you just Google Adam Christman, it'll all pop up there. And then, yeah, the host of the podcast, the Vet Blast podcast, and dbm360.com. It's open access education for everyone. It has
Which
a
is what
heavy
I love.
emphasis, yeah, on veterinary professionals, but everyone can learn about it, what's trending in the industry, completely free. So I would love for you to check it out.
Great. Adam, thank you so much. And until next time, everyone, kiss your dog, your cat, your bird, your horse, your lizard, especially the lizards. This is Debra Hamilton, and we'll see you soon.